I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hello, friends, and I will not be on camera tonight. I have a bit of a facial injury. So instead of trying to cover that up, I'm just going to let it be and let it heal. So we are here for the Keys of Enoch, key 3-1-2, which is on pages 449 to 466. So let's read the key. The keys to future luminaries tell us the host network connecting memory network with precisely defined directions with a universal language process for pattern formation. The pattern formation is the recorder cell in the midst of, quote, the tree of life, end quote, as a candle burning in the midst of, quote, 7 candles, end quote. 7 Hosmal light energies move color index into luminosity and radius of membrane pattern. The pattern is given in 7 clusters, each having envelope energy bands which govern the membrane radius. The luminosity interfaces a light spectrum given in white and yellow cube indexes so that as radius increases into a brighter luminary body, disruptive and degenerate processes receive a non-degenerate range. This is how some of the stars connect evolution with new form. Quote, 7, end quote, automatically sends, quote, I am, end quote, to, quote, I am, end quote, in the light codes, which measure lines of growth, teleshift temperatures, and internal light timers. Quote, 7, end quote, attaches illuminations of 7 external time reactors to 7 internal light codes, which code a template fired by 10 light picture superscripts. The superscripts fire a heat envelope code, which has a 36 and 36 flow pattern. The heat establishes a deca-delta light manifold into sequences of models for successive evolutionary phases. The energy radiations give a pattern of energy filling space, which races against the convective energy transport of the, quote, higher membrane, end quote. The vehicle template determines the directions of cell divisions and the exact number of cells which, in space-filling space energy, determine the final shape of an organ and the language life pattern receiving additional language codes. All human life is coded in cell division. The body is host vehicle to the, quote, supra-machine Mazaroth, end quote, and the solar reactor, which is used to buffer output messages, which would be destructive to other memory recorder mechanisms. In our consciousness time zone, the seraphim move between networks of the Mazaloth and the Kuchavim as a host computer, translating characters and memory formation restoration to higher code bodies in the, quote, consuming fire of the throne, end quote, in the image of, quote, eternal transparency, end quote. So this is the longest key that we have had. But before we get into it, I'm going to say hello to some people. Auntie is here first. Hi with the peace sign, my favorite auntie. Electric Gnosis is here. Welcome. And it seems like this is your first time, saying it's a huge sync. Never on YouTube, checking out other channels. Here I am. Must be important. I hope so. Leon says, research errors and how much vitamin D3 we need. And yes, interestingly, speaking of syncs, right before we started the live, I was talking to Adrienne and we were talking about vitamin D3. interestingly enough. And electric gnosis says, let the sun create your vitamin D. It is a hormone. And normally that would be absolutely correct. We're specifically, which you would not know this your first time, we were specifically talking about Black men and Black people who tend to, especially in the United States and in Europe, tend to have pretty significant vitamin D deficiencies, which can cause some pretty severe depression and other health disorders. And so you have to supplement that, especially in the winter time. Chef Mike is here. Hi, Chef Mike. Thank you for being here. And Cosmic Surfer TV. All right. Hello to everybody. So we're going to use multiple concepts. Oh, hi, Adrian. You haven't missed much yet, but I did mention your name, that we were talking about vitamin D right before the live. So we're going to use multiple concepts to take J.J. Hertock's excessively esoteric work to something that's not soteric. I'll be critiquing his premises and offering guidance because his book seems to be a mix of Christian dispensationalism and Jewish Zionism, with a little bit of Hermeticism and Theosophy thrown in there. So we can dissect it to see what global elites may be up to on the religious front. So, and it also gives us an opportunity to talk about a lot of concepts. So the full reading is available on this channel, but you can listen to that before or after. This is one of the few times I'm going to recommend that if you enjoy this live and the way that we broke it down, that you go back and listen to the full reading. It is unlisted, so you have to get the link on this show. But tonight we're going to read the highlights. Leon says white people are vitamin D deficient in Europe and we are deficient here in America. Even white people are deficient here in America. And Leon, I'm just going to preface back to some of the other shows that we did. There are specific European people, like Scottish people don't tend to be vitamin D deficient, but myself, as being ethnically Welsh, myself and especially my sons tend to be very vitamin D deficient and have to take supplements here in America. So there may be something too that I haven't really looked in specific, things like that. And yes, electric gnosis, melanin is a sun protector. And so, it protects from the negative maybe effects of the sun. Totally agree. Okay, so let's get into the highlights. So verses 1 and 2 says, understand, O man of the earth, that you are extended to the worlds of light through a divine network language. Now you must decode this language operating within you and understand how you sprang from primal codes emanating from the templates of the heavens. All right, so this looks like we're going to try to decode the language that he's talking about, and hopefully he doesn't pull a Hertock and just make up definitions of already established words as we go along. Okay, so verse 3. The brain of man is part of the divine mind, and by decoding the human brain's mechanisms of memory storage in relationship to the universal language process, a higher hierarchical memory is revealed, and man discovers that he is a pulsating geometry of a divine language system. Okay, so to me, this sounds like the collective unconscious that Jung described. So for the live tribe, which this is the best live tribe on YouTube. I miss saying that. So I do have the best live tribe on YouTube, and you've probably been with me during a lot of those shows where we talked about Jung and the collective unconscious and shadow work and things like that. And shout out to the replay gang. So to me, that sounds like the collective unconscious that Jung described, or even if we broaden it a little bit, the universal consciousness of the East, that they talk about in the East, of the universal consciousness. or more accurately, maybe the Akashic records. So the Akashic records are a universal, ethereal gathering of mystical knowledge, right? So there's a lot of language and coding there. It holds a record of all events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, and future across all time and space. That's pretty cool, right? Like that's pretty cool that can be there. So that's what that is making me think of. So let's see if he continues on the same vein. So verse 6. However, this key defines only one of many models that the divine mind permits to occur under a preconditioned unfoldment of the image space. We are told in the book of Genesis that when our local universe was created, the heavens, the earth, and the image and similitude of man were all a product of this, quote, divine creation, end quote, which was implanted upon formlessness and void, parenthetically, the substratum of creation. So, okay, let's think about this. This is the point where I'm starting to see what he's really talking about. And so let's think about this like a Sims game, like a computer game. Okay, this is a Sims game. What he's talking about. Okay. The Ancient of Days, or creator God, or however you want to view that, built the quote unquote computer from scratch. Okay, as he's creating. He gets bored, which this is written about in many cultures, that the creator God either gets bored or he complains that humans are too noisy, right? And so he hands off his creations to his kids. Again, written about many, many times, right? And so we'll call them the Elohim. This is the Ancient of Days, the God, whatever. This is his kids, okay? If again, we're still using this metaphor, this way to picture this, okay? The void is like the turned off computer monitor. It is completely black, okay? So the Akashic records, the universal consciousness, whatever you want to call it, I'm just going to keep calling it the Akashic records, are the memory and operating systems of the program. So the Elohim, they are handed the computer and all this operating system. It's created. Okay. So the Elohim, the kids, make a Sims game, and it's called Earth. Okay. They give man a wife, right? This is Adam and Eve, right? They're making the game. They create Adam. They give man a wife. They have Adam name all the creatures that they make. And then they set up how man will eat and drink and void and procreate and. Then they set up the challenge in the game. Don't eat from the tree. Ha ha ha, giggle, giggle. We told them not to eat from the tree, right? And they obey. Man and woman obey. But then the mom of the Elohim, right? And this is written about in ancient scriptures, that the mom of the Elohim, whether you call her On, Inanna, Sophia, Asherah, the mom always intervenes to help humanity. Okay. So in this metaphor, the mom of the Elohim, which if you see on the screen, I had so much fun making that. She steps in. Okay. She thinks the kids are being mean by setting up man in their little made up game, right? Which, by the way, on the screen, what you see, what I've said are the Elohim. We have an angel, an alien, a Nomo, and an Anunnaki as the Elohim. Okay. So she thinks the kids are being mean to the humans. So she enters the game as a serpent to tell even Adam that they can eat from the tree. It's okay. It's a setup. So they do, and that makes them more sentient. Think about AI that we're working with now. Okay. eating of that tree made them more sentient, the knowledge, and they know more about their circumstance, right? We're naked, but um, that creates a problem. So the biggest Elohim brother, also known as Enlil, right? If we're going Anunnaki, right? Oh, yes, electric gnosis. The mom, Ishtar, Astaroth, and Astarte. Yeah. So Enlil gets annoyed because he was having fun, giving the humans a hard time. So he sets up more and more and more challenges for more gotcha moments to punish man because he's having fun with that. Then the second oldest, we'll call him Enki because we're still going with the Anunnaki names, which we could go with the Dogons or, the Hopi, whoever. I'm just going with the Anunnaki names. All these stories are the same. Okay. The second oldest, Enki, comes and makes lots of humans by encouraging procreation. Okay. So here's Enlil giving man and woman just all kinds of hard times and lots of challenges and setting them up for failure and all this. So what Enki does is he comes in and he makes a whole bunch more Sims characters, right? Earth characters. This annoys the piss out of Enlil. So he tries to destroy the game. This is where we get the flood, the fires, the apocalypse, those kind of things. So before he could do this, though, still using the computer metaphor, Enki comes and downloads as many of his favorite humans onto a thumb drive, what we would call the arcs, which again, these stories are global. He then re-downloads them back into the game after the devastation is over, after, Enlil's little fit's over. It makes me think of the 1980s when, those Mandela effects happened. What if there was a world destroying event? And so Enki had to come in and rewind us a little bit away from that event and then download us, and then they fix the game, and then they re-download us, upload us and then re-download us into the game, and we have a memory of that period of time where Enki had to rewind. Maybe that's what Mandela effects are. So in this metaphor, who are the watchers or the giants, that are talked about in these ancient texts, right? Well, those are the Ajiji, again, because we're using Anunnaki names. The Ajiji are the ones that the Elohim set up to watch the humans when they were away, okay? So the Ajiji made their own characters using the human code, i.e., the watchers come and they mate with the women. So they use the human code, but they make their characters bigger and stronger. Okay, so now we have giants. Electric gnosis, I did a show on egregores too. I think we're on the, we're thinking about these things. So, and it could be the AI cloud. Now, each of the Elohim had their original character. Okay, there's 7 Elohim. Okay. Those characters spawned lineages. Each one of those original characters of the Elohim, they spawned their lineage. So each lineage has their patron god or patron Elohim. But Enlil, being kind of a sadistic jerk in every writing that we ever read, entered the game as a burning bush and named himself the breath of life, Yahweh. He mandated pure faith, constant worship, sadistic punishments, and these incessant setups. And that's what he's always doing, is these setups. So he went about converting each bloodline, each lineage from the original Elohim to leave their first person player, Elohim, patron god, right? And only believe in him. This is how he wants to win the game. So this gave him like power coins and health bonuses while it was slowly killing off the other Elohim original players. But he knows his guys. He knows his original guys. So the sadistic genocidal maniacs that come from his lineage, he set them up and coded them from the beginning. So he uses his power-ups that he's getting from other lineages. He uses those to help his guys and mess with everyone else. So he wants to suppress their sentience so that they don't become like gods again. The Elohim didn't bring no women for you, Leon. You have a woman. How do you know that the Elohim didn't bring that woman to you? So, and when we die, instead of being reunited with our first person player, our patron God, our patron Elohim, Enlil respawns us back into the game to continue to get these health bonuses and power coins from our endless worship and devotion and begging for mercy. So here we are. Now, I want you to keep this game set up, this metaphor set up in mind as we go along in this chapter. I have a little bit different opinion about Yahweh, electric gnosis. So let's look at, I don't believe that Yahweh is the creator God. That's just baseline. Because in ancient texts, Yahweh was the 13th son of Ra. He was never the creator God until sects of people started saying he was. Henotheistic people, not even monotheistic. Okay, short story. That was the short version. So number 10. The Elohim are the creators of the patterns of the divine definitions, which, through a creative pulse, establish the network connecting the Father universe with the physical and spiritual galactic levels of evolving creation. That's just what I said. It's a game. There are levels, right? Okay, so verses 12 to 14. The seed forms are projected by the Elohim through the power of the treasury of light, which is a vortex of universal energy. As the seed forms approach the area where they are to be seeded, they are guided by the recorder cell, which is the governing mechanism in the formation of each world. The recorder cell exists as a projection of a divine recorder cell projected into the midst of the seed form. The divine recorder cell actively records eternal events and makes them available for transposition into the worlds of the lower heavens. Doesn't it sound like they're making up a Sims game? It's a Sims world. So in verse 16, it says, within each galactic level of evolution, there is coded through the divine seed forms different spiritual and physical worlds of creation. There's different levels, there's different worlds, there's this different multiverse as they set up this game. Think about all the people you hear talking about jumping timelines and different things like that. It's the levels, right? And as we progress through the simulation, we have multiple options of different realities as we go. 19 says, hence, the laws of the physical universe are superseded by the laws of a spiritual, invisible universe. Therefore, in our local universe, the central controlling functions of our galactic command exist in Sagittarius, functioning as a recorder cell. However, our galactic disk with its recorder cell exists as a multiple reality within the structure of a hyperphase control. So essentially, our physical reality, right? Our interaction with the Sims game, that's our physical reality, is superseded by the laws of the operating system, which is known in what we would call the spiritual realm, the realm where they live, where the Elohim are who are setting up this Sims game. Electric Gnosis, I'm so glad that you were here. And You can be out. Much love to you as well. I think accusing me of being wrong and saying I need to study etymology is kind of ignoring all the videos that I've done on this and allowing people to have their own opinion. But I appreciate you being here. Okay, so let's keep going. 24. Metatron explained to me that within this local universe, there are 7 major branches of star population arms controlling the various rhythmical activities of enzymes, cellular forms, etc., testing all possible definitions of an Adamic program within a 3 to 9 dimensional grid of physical space and time. The combination of these 7 branches allows for different phylogenetic trees of physical specieshood to arise from main sequence stars. Okay, so 7 branches, 7 lineages. There are 7 children of Anu. There are 7 Elohim. See, it's using different words for the same thing. The 7 are, if we use the Anunnaki verbiage again, Enlil, Enki, Inanna, Nana, Utu, Aresh Kagal, and Adad. So 7 first-person players originally. Verse 30 says, Metatron explained to me that the divine template orientating, he said orientating, physical events within the structure of our galaxy operates through a deca-delta configuration, which is the central network controlling all input operations and gradations of power necessary to sustain our galaxy. So it still sounds like a computer game. It's like setting up a game. 40 says, and of course, I'm not a computer person, so, somebody else can say, you are so off. Verse 40 says, these 7 Hosmal energies can also come. Now, remember that these 7 Hosmal energies are the first person players, okay? The 7 Hosmal energies can also come directly from the Elohim and connect to any of the 7 branches or star clusters. This is only done when it is necessary to reestablish the harmonics of the recorder cell to be in accord with the Father's program. When they got a reboot. It sounds like a reboot to me. So, but any of the Elohim can come in and play each other is also what it's saying. But they're only supposed to do it when the game gets wonky, right? When they have to reestablish the harmonics. Okay? So this is like Yahweh, aka Enlil. All right, 49. During this, quote, holding position, end quote, the network of our star intelligence is coded to operate within the cosmic law of our Father Universe, which is the 10 Commandments. These are the 10 light superscripts which, through a heat envelope code, establish the deca-delta manifold. They provide the sustaining force of life. Therefore, they existed before the world of physical form. So these are our original prime directives. Okay, this is a Sims game. We ate from the tree of life. So we are like sentient AI at this point. Again, this is the metaphor that I'm using. So these are our original prime directives, the 10 Commandments. So in Hebrew, which is the original text, they are the 10 declarations. Okay, there's been so many translations, right? The 10 declarations, right? But remember, Enlil and Enki made man. So if we translate straight from the original Hebrew, our prime directives are, number 1, I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. 2, you shall not have other gods before my presence. 3, you shall not make for yourself a carved image nor bow to them. Number 4, you shall not carry the name of Yahweh in vain or emptily, which means don't do things in my name. Number 5, remember the Sabbath day and keep it distinct. 6, give weight to your father and mother. 7, you shall not murder. Now, this is not kill. Killing is allowed. Murder means killing each other, the chosen of Yahweh. It's only murder if the chosen of Yahweh kill each other. If they kill other people, then that's killing, and killing is allowed. So you shall not murder. Number 8, you shall not violate another man's household bond. So this is property violations, which includes wives, because wives were considered property. Leon says, yes, as kingdoms are empires, yes, conquer others. They take their story and assimilate them to their own. Yes, which is what Yahweh kept doing across these lineages, right? And when I say Yahweh, maybe it was Yahweh, maybe it was people. I don't know. I'm working on a metaphor here. So number 9, you shall not steal. So this does not include theft. Okay. It was specifically worded to mean from each other, much like murder. Stealing is Yahweh's chosen taking from one another. Theft is when you take from a Gentile or somebody who is not chosen, and thievery is allowed, but stealing is not. And number 10, you shall not covet. And the examples, there are examples given in the text, in the Hebrew text. The examples given are house, a wife, servants, and livestock. So you shall not covet houses, wives, servants, and livestock. So those sound a bit different after empires and religions and zealots, get a hold of them, right? When we directly translate from the Hebrew. So those were our original prime directives from Enlil/Yahweh as we became sentient in the Sims game. So let's keep going. This is verse 52. They were also originally inscribed into the consciousness of man, but due to the confusion of his identity, man was not able to renew his biological universe through their power. So our directives, our 10 directives, were originally inscribed into our consciousness. But something happened where we couldn't re-up, right? Which could have been eating from the tree of knowledge, right? At whatever that might have been, a download, an upload, something, right? And then 62. In our reality structure, they are coded within everyone, but their verisimilitude to the divine thought forms has to be reawakened. Prime directives, right? And he's talking about the 10 commandments, the prime directives. So verse 71 and 72, in circumstances of limited reception, which account for 9/10 of the physical universes, divine intermediaries known as the Benai Elohim are required to use the Eye of Horus creative power to establish a particular form of evolution within the divine program, the game. However, even here, the work of the divine blueprint is limited, and the masters must incarnate like Moses to reveal the divine universal law and the divine commandments. Okay. Benai Elohim are the kids of the Elohim. So this is Anu, or the creator God, right? Whoever you want to call him. This is Anu's grandkids. The Benai Elohim are the kids of the Elohim. The Elohim set up the first person players and the lineages. The Benai are the kids. So these grandkids can hack into the program. They're hackers. And they can hack in to change or try to affect parts of the game, or to remind people of their original prime directives. Okay. 76 says, limited spontaneous creation also can arise from the combinations of floating amino acids, which are elemental life forms remaining from the discharge of light energy coming from newborn star systems of divine light. These create the patterns working with experimental programs of creation. So occasionally there's a spontaneous Sims character that just comes out of nowhere, right? And seems to want to always help humanity, right? Like Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua. Like it's a spontaneous creation who seems to see the matrix. You know, Jesus sounded a lot like Neo, right? Okay, 77 says, the combination is spontaneous insofar as life and the light forces are uniquely combined so as to create by themselves a program of evolution. So that would be a virgin birth, spontaneous creation. See? But he's not the only one, nor is he the only prophet that ever came into the game. It seems like these grandkids, the Benai Elohim, hack in and get into a spontaneously created human and then set about to give humans the game. They give them some game, right? Jesus is a prime example of this, but not the only one. And I'm going to show you through texts how this metaphor is a better way to think about Jesus and his message. Mark 10:18. Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. So he doesn't want anyone offering praise-based power-ups except to the original creator Father Anu. John 12:31. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. So Anu is not in charge. Yahweh/Enwil is. And Jesus wants us to oust him, the ruler of the world. John 14:30. The ruler of this world is coming, but he has no power over me. So yeah, like this Benai Elohim are saying, yeah, Uncle Yahweh is no match for Yeshua or Jesus's hacking powers. You know, the Benai Elohim are in there saying, nah, he can't get us. We're better hackers than he is. John 8:44. You are from your father, the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning. Remember the difference between murder and kill? He was a murderer from the beginning. There is no truth in him. Lineage is here, right? Your father, the first person Elohim that he's talking to, he was a murderer. He was the devil. Then the Gospel of Thomas saying 3 is, if those who lead you say to you, see, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds precede you. If they say it's in the sea, then the fish precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside you and it is outside you. So you can only exit the game by awakening to the game. So if we continue in saying 3 in the Gospel of Thomas, when you know yourselves, then you will be known and you will understand that you are children of the living Father, right? Your spark comes from the Elohim. Saying 83, images are manifest to humanity, but the light in them remains concealed. People worship the image and not the light. Images on a screen. Again, this is a metaphor. I'm not saying it's actual computer screen. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene. There is no sin, but it is you who make sin when you do what is adulterous in nature. Sin is created. It's the gotcha moments. Luke 17:20-21. The kingdom of God does not come with observation, for indeed the kingdom of God is within you. Jesus was never a blood payment for our sins. He never said that. And let's say he was. I mean, let's just go with it. If he was, then why is there still sin? Why can I still sin? Why do people supposedly still go to hell? Think about this for a second. If I didn't bring money to the restaurant and you paid the bill, then why do I have to keep paying the same bill over and over again? It makes no sense. Unless your faith and worship and praise and begging for forgiveness actually power the wrong God. Remember, Jesus said he supersedes the Mosaic law. He overwrote the prime directives. He removed those original prime directives, okay, which are the 10 commandments. So now you are able to stop being owned and controlled by Yahweh because he overwrote them. So let's go through the 10 commandments when he overwrote them. Number 2, you can now have other gods. Your original Elohim, your patron god. Number 3, you can now make carvings and representations of your patron god. You can now speak directly and honestly about Yahweh. You can now do what you please on any day of the week. You can now disregard the poor advice and bad role modeling of your parents. You can now defend yourself as well as call out killings and genocides. You can now disregard women and enslaved people being property. You can now condemn wage theft, conquest, and plunder. And you can now compete for what you want. That is the fulfillment of the Mosaic law. Jesus removed the 10 commandment prime directives. Hopefully that's making sense. All right, let's keep going. 88, verse 88. All right, 88 and 89. This continual coding was able to take place through the superior genetic seed categories known as the Sethian, Enochian, Noachian, and Davidic lines. These purer seed categories were necessary so that the right spiritual capacity and genetic capacity could counterbalance the imperfect human chemistry. Through this physical verisimilitude of the Adam Kadmon, the Lords of Light of the office of the Christ could walk upon the earth according to the divine seed of David, but not the seed of Adam. So it seems to me, I'm sorry, Leon said something. Maggie, the sea and the sky both have water. I forgot the rest of the passage, but damn, now I'm going to search for it. Yes. Okay, so this verse, it seems to me that it's saying that the first of Enlil's line was David, not Adam. Because remember, her talk is all about Yahweh's line and about downloading Yahweh's people into vessels, humans who give up their spirituality. That's what he's been asking for this whole time. So the first of Enlil's line was David, not Adam. So his lines are the ones that aren't pure. They're not the original made by Anu at the creation of the game, but the later bastardized type versions, right? So 91 says, and as a witness to this revealed truth, Metatron explained to me that the 7 biochemical shells of Moses and Jesus used during their earth ministry are coded in the Great Pyramid, which is a model of the Decadelta grid that will be used again in the resurrection of the human experiment. Yes, Leon, keep going. Okay, human experiment. There it is. It's a Sims. The human experiment. It's a Sims game. And yes, the grandkids hacking the codes are probably in the Pyramid of Giza. That's why we can't read it. We don't know what that shit says. And maybe we could use it and maybe we can't use it, to figure out our state and how to actually play the game. But I personally don't think we need it. This is me. I said personally. What we possibly need is to get the attention of our original patron god. The only ones who could re-enter the game and defeat the great deceiver. Okay, 97. It is important at this time For man to understand consciousness regeneration taking place through a quanta deck of light. The quanta deck is 49 transitional states of consciousness, which are used to teach man how his consciousness options can be integrated with other consciousness time zones in space-time production. The quanta decks of light, parenthetically, which perform an update function, are progressively sent out from the center of our galaxy to the individual branches of the star populations in order to develop an index of operations that are in resonance with the chief index stored in the center of the galaxy. So, an update is what he's talking about. So, do we want the update? Sometimes an update fixes viruses and glitches, right? Like maybe a deceiver god trying to take over and change code. Maybe it fixes that glitch. But sometimes an update removes all we have gathered and all we have learned in that app. So will the update reset all the wrongs, or will it put us all back to sleep? If we look at what Hertalk said before, then the update will make us automatons for him to download other entities into. So I don't like it. All right, verse 115. Once the mind is made a vehicle for the force field of the higher light, see? Okay, once the mind is made a vehicle for the force field of the higher light in the deep network regions, the mind can actively operate on the wavelength or the template of that higher star intelligence. It will no longer be contained within three-dimensional relativity or consciousness patterns where the game of Earth is going around in circles. Literally just said it. Game of Earth is going around in circles. Thus, the Earth intelligence remains locked in space until it is taken out of its physical paradigm by a higher astrochemical key. Well, there it is. The game of Earth. We just heard it. Okay. This is why the powers that be steal and hoard all of the ancient texts and writings and all the information, and why they seem to get all the goods all the time. They got all the cheat codes. They got all the codes. Leon says, I'm to the point that two names were put into different spots. Whew, here we go. Ham's line seemed to always have a home. The same with Shem, but the other always had trouble finding a home until they got help. Oh, you mean Japheth? Whose lineage is that? Put it into the Sims game. Think about it in terms of the Sims game. Okay, so what do you guys think? Okay, and replay gang, I want to hear from you too, but live tribe, what do you think? Is life a Sims game? Is it like a Sims game? And if it is, what does that mean for you? I mean, in metaphysics, they talk about an overself a lot. And we've heard that term overself by Hertalk. Now, he uses it inappropriately. But there are so many writings, Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, the Hermeneutics, in metaphysics, they're always talking about like this overself, which would be your first person player who is playing you in this game of reality. So what does it mean for you to realize that? Imagine your player, right? This is God's kid who is playing your character, playing you in the game. Would he be frustrated with you? Would he wonder why you let fear hold you back all the time? Would he be proud of your growth and the level that you've reached in the game? If it's just a game, what would you change? But let's talk about game theory. Because if life is a game, and we've heard that phrase before, but hopefully now we have a better understanding of what that means, then let's talk about game theory. Game theory, so I'm going to read you the definition. Game theory is the study of strategic decision-making in situations where outcomes depend on the choices of multiple players, not just what you do, but what others do in response to you. In plain terms, it analyzes how rational and irrational agents compete, cooperate, bluff, defect, negotiate, and adapt when incentives, risks, and information are uneven. Now apply it to the Sims game of our reality and our first person players. Yes, game theory. So the elements of game theory that we're going to talk about, the players who are the decision makers, which we're calling the Elohim, strategies. This is our free will, right? The options that each player can choose, the payoffs, which is what each player gains or loses from the outcomes, information, what the first person players, and then what their characters know or don't know, and then equilibrium, right? And this is a core element of game theory. It's the stable outcome where nobody benefits by changing strategy alone, right? That is called the Nash equilibrium. So if life is a game, and we're using a metaphor, but this is in text, this is what they always make it sound like, okay? Then we need a practical tutorial using game theory. So number one advice in game theory is to pick the right game type, right? Know what game you're in before you actually start to play, right? Are you in a finite game, which there are short wins like money, status, approval, attention, then it ends, it resets, right? It's addictive. Those are finite gains, right? Short wins. And then people just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over. Dopamine drops, right? Then you have the infinite game, which is about growth, freedom, impact. It never ends. You just keep leveling up. So think about that, an infinite game instead of finite gains. So number two would be understand the hidden mechanics of the game. So understand the real currencies of the game of life. Attention gives energy. So just as people who are praising, worshiping, begging, praying to different gods, attention gives energy. So if you give attention to yourself, you give yourself energy. If you give your attention to somebody you love, you give that character energy. If you give it all to an unseen overself, they get all your energy. Okay. Fear is a control mechanic. So this is how they would set up barriers, is by instilling fear. Okay. They don't have to put walls up if they instill fear as a control mechanic, right? Choices are power, and awareness of all of this is the cheat code. Now, we don't know exactly how to be aware of every little thing because all these texts are underneath the Vatican and in museums and in vaults owned by the United States. Leon says there's something that is missing from the game theory game. Really, it is women, or maybe in a way that the game is too masculine, attack, chill, and constant pressure. Unless you're looking at an infinite game, Leon, growth, freedom, impact. Remember how I've talked about men and women have to work together. So in this game, men and women have to work together in the game of life. Okay. Because men lead, women guide. Okay. Men, create, women are the muse, to fully win the game, you got to work together. Okay. And that's that awareness of that the genders are not opposite, they are complement. I'm going to say it one more time. Genders are not opposite, they are complement. And every time we screw that up and think that we're opposite and start pointing our fingers, men ain't this and men are that and blah, blah, blah. We hear a lot of that. then we lose sight of that we are to complement one another. Mr. Sterling, thank you for being here. Is it fair to say trickery is also a part of the game? I would assume so, and I think it seems like it would go in with that fear control mechanic. It's a control mechanic, manipulation, trickery, setting up the gotcha moments, right? Which then when you get caught and bad things happen, it creates fear, sadness, negative emotions. So it becomes then a control mechanic, right? A way, meaning a mechanism to control. Okay. So if something constantly demands your fear or worship, then it is farming you for your resources. You are giving it energy. So, number 3, you need to choose your player class. Okay. We have NPC mode, and they just react, obey, and consume. We see a lot of people on social media who seem to be NPCs. And why do they all say the same things over and over? They're just there to agitate, right? They react, they obey, and they consume. That's the NPC mode. Then we have the strategist mode who observes, chooses, designs. This is a mode that you could be in. The architect mode who changes the game for others, sets up the paths, leaves the keys. Was it that Zelda game where you had to find keys? Do you remember? And then you have the upgrade path, okay, that you want to take. NPC to strategist to architect, those kind of things. It's the infinite game of growth. Number 4, you want to use core game theory strategies in the game of life. So the first one is do not play zero-sum games, right? A zero-sum game is where somebody has to lose for you to win. So this is like a status war, identity wars, moral superiority games, pissing matches, right? Zero-sum games get you nowhere. It takes you off of that upgrade path, the infinite game, okay? Those zero-sum games do that. It burns your energy and keeps you stuck at the lower levels of the game. So instead, play positive sum games where you build skills, you create alliances, you put in systems that help multiple players win at any given time. Okay. You want to use tit for tat with grace. Okay. Classic game theory winner in repeated games is to start a cooperative. So this is classic game theory. Okay. The way to win: start a cooperative, mirror behaviors, forgive once, and exit if you are exploited. Boom. Translation, be kind, but don't be naive. And boundaries are part of love. They are part of awareness. You have to maintain them. Okay. And then you want to master the option value. So you always want to keep multiple paths open at any given time, or as many as you possibly can. So don't burn bridges, build portable skills that you can use in different locations, and then maintain financial, social, and psychological mobility. People who are super rigid in their thinking tend to go around in circles in their life. With people who can't seem to abstract thought or abstract meaning out of other things, or to be able to reason through new information, or they can't deal with cognitive dissonance, tend to go around in circles in their life over and over and over and over until they're able to master this option value, which to me has everything to do with resilience. Okay. So freedom equals the number of available moves that you have that you've built for yourself. So then we want to look at, how do you beat the boss, right? How do you beat the boss mechanics? Okay. So boss number one is the fear loop, right? Because that's the control mechanics. The fear loop. Media causes panic. Religions cause absolute terror. You have social shaming, all of those kind of things. So how do you beat the boss? Number one is to pause. Because in this world and in this game, we're constantly pushed to react quickly. Move fast, react quickly. What's the answer? Keep going, argue back. Aren't you going to answer me? No, we need to talk about it now. No, we have to do this now. We have to. And I'm saying this as a person who struggles with patience. So the first thing you have to do for a fear loop is to pause. In psychology, we call it thought stopping. Start that back over. There we go. So pause, observe like an outside observer what is happening to you from the outside, and then make conscious choices, thoughtful choices of what you want to do. Fear loses its power when you point it out, when you see it, when the monkey on your back or, the devil on your shoulder, right? No, that is causing me fear. That is causing me to not think about what I'm doing and actually just operate out of anxiety. Make sense? Sorry, had to get a drink. All right. Then look at, in the game of life, there's this praise economy. Okay. The system rewards specific things. Okay. The system rewards obedience. And what you get, the reward that you get for your obedience is approval. So you get the attaboy, you get the pat on the head, you get the you're one of us, you get the belonging, you get the group think. So how do you counter a praise economy where you are supposed to be obedient and send your praise outside of yourself? You're supposed to spend your energy outside of yourself. Well, you keep the internal scoreboard, right? What have I done for myself? If I've got a ton of negative things going on in my life, or things that I don't necessarily like, because negative can be a takeaway, then how do I counter that with positive things for myself? I don't have to work my fingers to the bone. I don't have to give all my time and energy for somebody else to make money off of my labor. I don't have to send all my money or spend all my money on other people. I don't have to give all of my time, attention, and praise to an unseen other, right? I can keep my internal scoreboard, right? And externally, I can applaud people's accomplishments. Oh, Leon says most definitely. All right. Now, another boss is a false win. Okay. Now, a false win is what the game tells you is the win. Okay. Like money. You make a certain amount of money, you win at the game of life, or you have a certain amount of followers on social media, right? That then you win the game of life. Like that is the point of life, is to make all this money, to have all these followers. Because remember, it's set up as a praise economy. So of course, they would tell you the game of life is won by money and followers, accolades, right? Titles, those kind of things. You have to redefine winning as having nothing to do with a praise economy and everything to do with eating from the tree of knowledge, the awakening. Making sense? Leon says, I left a conversation yesterday because of this very subject. Wow. I love all the synchronicity. Okay. Step number 6, I'm just going to call it the Jesus move. Well, it's a cheat code. Use the Jesus move. The Jesus move is, instead of fighting the system head on, you go around it, right? You expose it, you refuse its currencies, right? You offer other players, a different path, a different way out, a shortcut, right? There's no rebellion there. It kind of breaks the game, right? It's a cheat code. So use the Jesus move. And then, a daily playbook is always helpful. Think about when you're really trying to win a video game. Sometimes you got to write stuff down. You got to get the magazine with the cheat codes in it. You got to do all these things. You have these playbooks. So in the game of life, the playbook, you need to ask yourself questions every day. What game am I being pulled into? Like, what is this mini challenge of the day that I'm being pulled into or being set up to play because my first person player wants to play it, or some other Elohim or Benai Elohim is challenging me to something? What game am I being pulled into? Do I want to play it? Is it a zero sum? Is it towards finite wind? Or sometimes finite wind is fine. That's what the little challenges are for. But do I want to even play it? Number 2, does this increase my freedom or my level towards winning the game, or does it somehow reduce it? Is it going to knock me down a level? Is it going to put me, respawning in a different world? Am I acting from fear or from multiple choices that I have set up? Am I farming approval, right? Those short-term games, or am I building power towards my level up? Did I leave the world, this game, a little better than I found it for the people who are playing behind me? That would be how you win the game. So if it's just a game, what a word, right? If it's a game, what would you change about the way that you're living life? Those are real things to consider. Is there even such a thing as regret anymore? Or do you want to take more risks? Do you want to stop living in fear? A lot of times, the chances that you have today are chances that will never present themselves again. And if you've had multiple chances to do the thing that you actually want to do and you keep not doing it, then are you going to win the game? So, things to consider. Did you know that a survey was done on some very elderly folks in a nursing facility? One question was, not just a nursing facility, several, by the way, there's like thousands. One question was, what is your biggest regret? So this is, people 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? Who are closer to their mortality, right? So the question was, what is your biggest regret? Overwhelmingly, the answer was letting fear hold them back. The answer, above all other things, was letting fear hold them back. Could you imagine being an older person and you don't have to regret that you let fear hold you back? It was about not going for the girl, not saying what they wanted to say, not reaching for the mountaintop, not going back to school, being more concerned about what other people are going to think, or what bad thing is going to happen, or what if I lose my money? Not these people say their biggest regret is letting fear hold them back. All of those things are based in fear, right? And fear is the control mechanism of the game of life. So those people didn't get to reach the highest level that they could have reached in the game because fear was the control mechanism of the other players using that against them. So imagine yourself as elderly and your biggest regrets are letting fear hold you back. You would wish that you could go back in time and change it, right? Wouldn't you? You would wish and wish and wish. I wish I could go back in time and change it. I wish I could go back in time and fix it. But here's the thing. You are at that time now that elderly you would come back to fix it. You're there now. You're already back in time. So you can change it now. So just change it and give old you, later you, older you some peace. Auntie says at 67, I agree. Cosmic Surfer says, fear is a huge barrier to winning the game of life, Maggie. Real talk. I agree. All right. I thank all of you for being here tonight. This was a fun one. I was really excited about doing it because this metaphor really brings together a lot of, many ancient texts globally. This is a theory. This is a way to conceptualize what all the ancient texts are telling us, even what Jesus was telling us. This is the way to conceptualize it. Jesus said to stay away from fear. They all say that fear is the bad guy, deception and fear, right? Always, always, always. Somebody just said that they can't hear me. Can you guys put a 1 in the chat if you can still hear me? Well, I'm going to keep going in case you guys can hear me. Somebody just said they can't hear me anymore, but it says I'm still live. So I want to thank you guys. The next shows coming up are this. Okay, there's the ones. Okay. Nope, still here. I had text saying that all the sound went out. Must be on their end. Appreciate you guys for the ones. Okay. Coming up this Sunday, with the world and the society that we live in, we knew that it was coming and they've tried to do it before. Anti-miscegenation is the topic du jour again. You literally have pastors who have married outside of their quote unquote race or ethnicity, talking about that it was a mistake while they're standing there taking a picture with their wife. And so there's a lot of conversation going on with that, trying to get rid of interracial marriage, yada, yada, yada. So going to talk about that this Sunday. My special guest is going to be Adrian Hicks. He's so great at conceptualizing things, explaining things, having historical knowledge. So we're so lucky to have him. So he and I will be talking about this Sunday. Hopefully you all can be there. But if not, we will continue on with the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. We are almost done. It goes to 3-1-9 maybe. But we're getting close to being done. And we will have finished it. And it took about a year. We have been in this. But until then, I'm going to show you guys a picture of my dog. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. Let's uncover the universe together.